Good afternoon, and welcome to Like a Boss Now. Thank you so much for joining us on this rainy Friday. First, we're so appreciative of our sponsors, Hub International, Bernstein Shur, and our Like a Boss Live sponsors, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, JP Morgan Chase, Vistage, and Coffee by Design. Our sponsors help fund Press Herald journalism, which is more vital than ever. But before we get started, I'd like to open it up to Peter Fendler of Hub International to say a few words. Peter.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everybody. My name is Peter Fendler. As Kate said, I'm a principal and managing partner at Hub Investment Services, a division of Hub International. On behalf of my colleagues at Hub across the state, we're thrilled to be part of this groundbreaking virtual event series and thankful for our partnership with Maine Today Media. Our areas of focus are employee benefits, retirement plans, and property and casualty insurance. And like you, we're adapting and evolving daily to this new situation in the employee benefit space with all the upheaval with employers and dealing with their employees. It's a very busy time for us in helping our clients kind of understand what their options are, interpreting the CARES Act and the Family First Act, and getting that information out. And it's very involved, and it's at the same time very rewarding to be able to help clients. We've been working with Bernstein Shur, so the timing on this is good. We've worked with Bernstein Shur for a long time with Steve Gerlach and their ERISA department, so I'm interested in hearing Joan's comments. But as we go through this 7-part series together, I hope that you'll keep in mind that we're always available to you. This is not about our bottom line. This is really about the survival of your businesses and the state as a whole. And whether you need help with human resources, risk management, or retirement solutions, our job is to help you get through it. So don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd love to help you out. And with that, I'll turn it back to Kate.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. I know we so value working with you and Hub on our benefits and retirement plans. And I know as all of us are facing this different reality, I thank you for all you do for us. And if you have insurance questions, please get in touch with Peter at Hub. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to the CEO and publisher of the Portland Press Herald, Lisa DeSisto.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you to Peter and Hub. I did want to show you that I have this Hub hand sanitizer that we got last year at open enrollment. So when we all get back together at the Portland House of Music, I know that Peter will have tons and tons of these for us. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ken Bell from the Portland House of Music. I saw him on the registration list. So it's the right thing not to be there together in person, but we look forward to getting back together to the Portland House of Music, where we will have our delicious coffee from Coffee by Design. We miss Kevin and Mary Allen, but I will tell you, you guys are powering my my home office brew. So thank you so much for that. If you think I'm in the Portland Press Herald newsroom, I'm not. I'm actually in my at my house. It's a disaster behind me, and I'm just thankful that we've become Zoom experts in like 48 hours. So I've got this fake background. So I'm so excited that Joan could join us. We also appreciate the support of Bernstein Shur as part of this 7-week series, which is going to be really fun. And I'm also really proud of the way we brought it together so quickly, with Kate securing sponsors and Strawberry and Chad figuring out the technology, and all of you wanting to be part of it. So so with that, I say welcome, Joan. Again, thank you for being with us. And we all know that Joan was appointed CEO of Bernstein Shur in January. And so yeah, how about that timing, Joan?
That was a rapid start.
Yeah, so you start on January 1st in your new role. You've obviously been at the firm for years. And one of the things that challenges your leadership immediately is figuring out how to manage through a pandemic, which no one has any experience doing. So what were your instincts? Tell us about how that all came together.
Well, first, thanks for having me here, Lisa. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation with you. So my instincts have really evolved over 2 phases, I would say. When it first started happening, I was, or hitting the US, I was probably doing what other business leaders were doing and just really closely following the news and trying to figure out at which point this was going to have a real and tangible impact on our business. I would say by late February, we started relying on our business continuity plan. Under our business continuity plan, we pulled together our incident management team and started meeting daily. And so the first phase, I would say, was very logistical. Pulling the team together, meeting regularly, sending an email update to the firm, assuring people that we were on it, we were planning. We did a survey to all people in the firm asking about their remote technology capabilities, and learned that most lawyers have the capability to work remotely, but our staff did not. And we learned that there were a number of people who didn't even have up-to-date computers or a laptop at home. So we immediately ordered 60 laptops, did a beta test. And at that point, it seems funny now, but at that point, we were more planning for if we might have to go remote. It was really an open question at that point. So we were just trying to be ready. And we did the beta test of the laptops. We got them configured. And then for me personally, by that time, we were meeting daily. We were planning. But then I would say the phase 2 for me, when it really started to hit home, was the week of March 9th. And then we had the governor's press conference that week where we learned the first positive case. And the real tipping point for me, I would say, is I read an article early on the morning of the 13th that talked about flattening the curve and compared different cities and their preparedness and what a difference it made in the death rate. And then I just really locked in at that point. It became, I don't want to overstate it, but it became a life-saving mission for me. I just really realized we had to get people out of the office. We had to be remote, and we had to do our part to try to save lives and really push social distancing. So at that point, I went from logistical planning to really focusing on how to keep people safe.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's how it's kind of evolved.
It's kind of remarkable how we all have this new lexicon, right? From flattening the curve to all these terms that we didn't have before, social distancing, but also how quickly people responded to working remotely. So you've been the CEO though for 3 months. And, I'm sure a lot of your interaction was person to person and, kind of leading by walking around. So now you're leading remotely. So what's that like for you? How do you stay in touch with people? I'll make it a 3-part question, both from a productivity perspective, but also really from a, everyone's kind of mental health perspective and keeping spirits high and positive.
First of all, I would say that in terms of leading remotely, and like other things, my thinking has evolved very rapidly. I think as a remote leader, it's really important to be remote. And when we first decided to go remote, we now also have the term essential business, but even before that was the case, we knew that we wanted everyone to go remote, but we would have a core of essential workers, to get the mail, deposit checks, that sort of thing. And my initial thinking was that as the leader, I should go in every day and be kind of moral support for those folks and be visible and make sure they know I was there with them as their leader. And I did that the very first day, so Monday, March 16th. And then it dawned on me, if I am leading by being in the office, I am going to be role modeling behavior, and other people are going to think they should be in the office too. So I had a really kind of quick change of heart. And then I decided the best thing I could do as a remote leader would be to be remote. So I've been remote since the 17th. And I really have tried to keep an eye on that and encourage people. We have, because of technology, we know who's signing in from home and who's signing in from the office. So I was able to see who was having a hard time letting go of being in the office and just constantly encourage people. I asked our IT director to give a couple of diehards some personal attention to make sure they had everything they needed, but really have encouraged people. And now we're at a place where really we're just down to bare essentials in the office. The other thing I did early on is I started sending a daily email. Some of it was very factual. Early on, it was on COVID-19 and hand washing, and it has evolved over time. Sometimes we give updates on infection rates and deaths, other, different updates. But I started doing them every day, and it's really interesting. That has become hugely important to people. And every single time I send an email out, I get responses from people that tell me how much it means to them and how grateful they are that the firm is watching out for their health and safety, and that we were ahead of the game and went remote early. And so part of what I'm doing as a remote leader, aside from being remote, is communicating constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I am laser focused on communications right now, both internally and with our clients, and with the different teams on my staff, and trying to make sure that people are hearing from me a calm, steady, encouraging voice.
That's great. I think this is really a time like no other, where employers really show to their employees their value and how much we care about them as people and care about their families and their safety. I too felt compelled to go into the office because I wanted to support the people that had to be there, but then I realized that's not the right message. The thing that we are really focused on is keeping our press room safe and healthy, and so the fewer people in the building, the better. As much as I want to like bring cookies in for the press operators, no. So we really have done the same thing.
We've had to learn, for people who are still going to the office, if someone gets sick, you have to really close the office and do a deep clean. And so I definitely want people to stay home to flatten the curve and to keep people safe, but there's also a practical operational aspect of it. It is just better to keep as many people out of the office as possible.
Yeah. So some of the questions that I'll be asking Joan, many of you will recognize because they're adapted from the questions that you submitted in advance. And then in a little while, we'll also be opening it up for questions. And if you have a question, probably in about 10 or 15 minutes, you can use the raise your hand icon and we will call on you. So talk about the perception of trust, though. How have you built trust with your managers through working remotely?
It kind of goes back to the answer I just gave you. I have, even before COVID-19, communication is hugely important to me. Excuse me, and transparency is hugely important to me. And that, I think I was already evidencing that before COVID-19.
Yeah. But
now people are hearing from me so regularly that I think the trust level has gone up, and I've shared the importance of that with our teams. And so I think I don't mean that I'm the only person in our firm to have thought of it. Our practice group leaders, for example, are doing a fantastic job. They too are leaders of their business units, the lawyers and the staff who work in their groups. And they too are doing similar things. I mean, right now, I would say we're almost more in touch with each other than we used to be. We are so hyper-focused on communicating with each other that the trust right now, I think between the extreme amount of communication and people's sense that we are actively working really hard to make sure they stay safe and healthy, I think the trust level has soared, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Joan, like many of my Like a Boss guests, you went to Colby. And
yes,
so I wanted to ask you the question, what are the experiences that you can draw from your past, whether it's past work experience or education, that have helped you both as the CEO of the company, but also managing through this time?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Colby. I was a human development major at Colby, and then before going to law school, I got a master's degree in education, but I started out in counselor education, and ironically, it's those people skills that have served me the best as a leader. I think there are lots of lawyers and other professions, right? We learn our profession, but we don't necessarily learn about leadership. And one thing, I've been in leadership at the firm for a long time, and I've really tried to educate myself about leadership and think about what makes a good leader. I didn't just stumble into this. And one of the things I've thought about a law firm leader is, as a law firm leader, you can hire out the finance piece, right? You can hire financial experts to help you on the financial running of a business. And we have an excellent IT person. That's someone you can hire to run the firm. There's lots of people you can hire to help you. But what you can't hire out as a leader is dealing with humans. And it's that people part that I think is, part natural instinct and part training at Colby. I also worked in residential life as an undergrad at Colby and a grad student at Maine. I was a resident director at Maine, and then I went to the competition, Lisa. I worked at Bowdoin for a couple of years, but those were all very people-focused jobs, leadership and people. And at a time like this, those are the skill sets that I think have prepared me. Look, nobody was prepared for dealing with a global pandemic.
Sure.
So I think the skills I'm calling upon now are more those skills.
Yeah, I always think emotional intelligence is just something that doesn't get talked about enough or valued enough, and it's critical in leadership.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that. That is one of my hot topics, and I actually talk about it before becoming the CEO. I was the head of attorney recruiting for 11 years at the firm, and I talk about emotional intelligence a lot. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't talk to your clients, or if when you talk, your clients don't understand what you're saying, it's not really that helpful. So emotional intelligence, I tell people, I no longer consider that a soft skill. I think it's a really critical business skill.
Yeah. I think EQ trumps IQ all day long, but
I'm with you.
That's just me. That's just me. So, all right, let's talk about a little real-time stuff. So what's gone remarkably well, and what have been the biggest challenges for you in this transition? Oh, and another three-part question, because we've heard this a lot from people. What do you think's going to stick when we come out on the other side of it? Because we've all demonstrated that we can work from home pretty well.
Okay, I'm gonna take a stab at your three-part question. Redirect me if I go astray.
Sure. Well, I usually, when I ask a three-part question, don't remember two of them, so I'll write them down. I'm gonna write them down.
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in.
Yeah, go.
One thing that I kind of marvel at is, again, let's just back up 3 months. If I had come into the job as the new CEO of a 100-plus-year-old law firm and said, okay, team, in the first quarter, I'm going to move us to remote work and paperless. Okay, ready, go. I probably would have been fired. And unbelievably, because of this crazy, horrific crisis we're in, that is exactly what we did. I mean, we did some planning, as I told you, but we did weeks of planning, not months, not years. We did weeks. And when the trigger was pulled on the 13th, by Monday, we were remote. And we are now a virtual law firm for all intents and purposes. So that's the biggest thing. Law firms are very paper heavy. We have talked for years about trying to go paperless, save the environment, save space, save money. We're now paperless for the most part. I mean, people didn't go home with printers. So, I mean, those to me are just unbelievable changes that would have never happened that quickly absent an absolute crisis. The other one that I'm super excited about is flexibility. I mentioned earlier, lawyers, at least our lawyers, have had the ability to work flexibly for a long time. But I think there was a prevailing view that we needed our staff in the office. We needed somebody near the copier and the scanner, and we just needed someone to answer the phone in the office. And when I first came into the role in January, I started a discussion about whether we could explore whether really we could be a little bit more flexible. We didn't even have time to have a meeting to have that discussion. And then now we're all remote. And so, look, there are some jobs that people are doing that we're getting by because it's a crisis. It really would be better to have people in the office. But I think we're finding there are a lot more people who can work remotely than any of us ever realized. And so at the end of the day, I hope most of us will be back at the office. I like seeing my colleagues' faces. I like the community. I think we can be more efficient. But there are times where it's just really nice to have flexibility. And I think what we've learned that's going to stick is we can afford people a lot more flexibility than we had thought about. Another thing that I'll be anxious to see how this impacts things. I know Lisa Whited is on this call. I saw her name on the registration. She worked with our firm on space planning to try to think about, as a modern law firm, do we still need the big corner office? Does everybody need a big office? Can we pare down? And we hadn't yet gotten to a place where we're all in agreement about how much space we need, and trying to project forward about how many people would be willing to work remotely felt like a complete crapshoot. And now, not that I have the answer, but now I feel like our footprint is likely to be a lot smaller in the future, because we know a fair number of our people might want to remain remote, and that'll be perfectly fine. I guess one last thought in terms of more globally, what might be lasting impacts in the world of work generally is this idea of flexibility as relates to kind of what I think of as bringing your human to work, and our being able to be our whole selves at work. And there's the kind of traditional old school view that a really dedicated worker is very compartmentalized, and that we go to work and kind of check your personal life at the door and pretend that you're just the worker bee. And I've never really embraced that view, but I think all around the globe right now, where people are very real. I've heard, they're kind of funny stories, but they're real human stories. I have a partner who was telling me about being on a call with a client. She thought she was muted, and she paused to yell at her kids to quiet down, and then politely got back on the conference call and continued leading a massive deal. And it's kind of, we're all human.
Right.
Dogs barking in the background, people walk, we've all seen the Zoom video blunders. And I have to chuckle. There was that BBC reporter video that sort of went viral a while ago, where there's a male expert, and it was like big news that the children, scooted
Came in
in
their little walker.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a joke for many women, because we're like, hello, that's what work is like for us all the time. You
Right.
just juggle a lot of things. And I just think everybody's doing that right now, and hopefully it'll help humanize the world of work. Certainly we need to be focused on work when we're at work, but I'd like to think we don't have to be quite as compartmentalized as some used to think we needed to be.
So we're getting ready to take questions. And I'll tee one more up for you, Joan. And if people want to ask Joan questions, please use the raise your hand icon, and we will call on you. So I wanted to shift for a second about kind of your leadership, but also to what Bernstein Shur has been doing to help people navigate through this time. I know you've made a lot of information available, so I wanted you to talk about that.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. When I was kind of campaigning, for lack of a better word, when I talked about my vision for what I wanted to do as CEO, I talked about the concept of service to our clients, service to our people, service to our communities. That has been our ethos for a long time. It's hugely personally important to me. And when this crisis really erupted, I started talking about service, and our people started talking about service right away. And we have put on a lot of webinars right out of the blocks. I think literally we were remote on Monday, March 16th, and that was our first webinar. And we've done, I think, 8 free webinars so far, and we have more coming. Look, I know there's a business development component of that, and I'm sure some might think, oh yeah, that's really nice, you can get clients out of it. But right now, my attitude, and I've shared this with all of our people, knowledge is power. And right now, the laws are changing rapidly. Employers are panicked. They're so concerned about their employees. They don't know what to do and how to help them. Laws are coming out quickly. Executive orders are coming out quickly. And as a law firm, we're not super well suited to help make face masks or to make ventilator parts. But what we are really well suited to do is to help people figure out what the heck is going on from a legal perspective. So we are just trying to help as many people as quickly as we can. The one that I had fun doing is I had the great benefit of inheriting an absolutely fabulous leadership team. I have a general counsel, a really fabulous IT guy. I have 2 different crisis communications experts, and I consult with them every single day. And we've got labor and employment and other experts that have been helping me. So one of the things I did was offered up to the Maine bar to have a webinar for small and mid-sized law firms because, this crisis is facing them too. And I thought they don't have the resources most likely to have this panel of experts, and I do. And so I kind of offered up my team to just try to help others. So that's just an example of what we're trying to do to be helpful. I don't know what else to do but offer up the tools we've got. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That's fantastic. Yeah, there is a lot where you have to become experts on things overnight, including like the CARES Act, which I think is an 880-page bill. So there's a lot to unpack, but there's a lot of good in it that that people need to act to quickly. So that advice is just so critical right now. So thank you for sharing that. So again, use the raise your hand icon, and I see we've got a couple questions, but there goes my dog.
See, that's very real and human.
Yep. Okay, totally distracted by it. A lot of scrambling downstairs. I can hear it. Okay.
It just makes us better, Lisa.
Joan, how do you, when you have now your office at home, how do you shut it off? Because I'm always like, I'm walking by my laptop and I'll be like, oh, let me just check in, like, see what's happened, see what the news is. But really, also for people that have families at home that are trying to juggle, making sure your kids are doing their lessons. How do you do it personally, and how do you encourage everyone at the firm to do the same?
So, I'm both aware that some of my team's listening and I'm role modeling to them, and I want to give you an honest answer. So I'm going to try to do both of those things. My honest answer is I think it's really important to put it down and walk away. I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time with that personally. That's what I'm struggling with. Fortunately, I have a husband who's also a lawyer and sharing an office with me right now, and he's been really great about saying, look, we need to shut off at a certain time and have dinner as a family, and make sure that we're not just working all the time. And for me personally, I think it's taking that, because with my new role and this amount of pressure, it would be easy to keep going. And so in my personal case, it's been hugely helpful to me to have a partner who's reminding me to stop. The other thing I'm trying to do is I haven't yet come up with a fantastic schedule where I can tell you I'm exercising a certain amount every day and doing all the things I wish I could tell you I'm already doing. But I am in those daily emails. I do try to remind people to do those things. When my family did go for a hike back when we could do that at Bradbury Mountain, I shared that in my video, in my email, just as an example. To try to encourage people, and on my Fridays messages, I do try to encourage people to walk away, put it down, try to have a weekend. And so part of it is just struggling for personal discipline and relying on my wonderful husband to help me find somewhere where I sag a little bit.
Yeah, it is so true though that you set the tone for that, right? So if your employees see you unplugging, they're going to feel that they can do the same as well.
I'll tell you one thing: I try not to send emails late at night for that very reason. I think that sends a wrong message if people are getting an email from the CEO at 10 o'clock at night. So I try not to do that.
Yeah, our biggest challenge right now is in the newsroom, because the news cycle is changing around the clock, and it's really getting our key editors to unplug. And I keep urging them that they have to stay healthy and they have to keep their energy level up. And we're in this for as far as we can see. So it's just really important. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I keep telling people it's a marathon, not a sprint, and we've got to take care of ourselves and our people, because this is not going to end quickly.
Yeah, I am going to 2 virtual happy hours today, which I'm pretty excited about. So yeah, so there's that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, Strawberry. So let's get the questions going.
All right, we have one from Douglas Packard. You should be all set to ask. You may have to unmute. Oh, there you go.
Okay, just wondering what's the most significant surprise that you've had since you took over the top spot?
Well, I don't want to be flip, but the global pandemic, I mean, that was, like I said earlier, you just cannot be prepared for that. So I knew I was walking into a big job. I knew I'd have a big learning curve, and I knew that that this would evolve. What I didn't expect is to have something so monumentally huge so quickly. And I guess, I don't know if this sounds funny to say, but I guess I've been really pleasantly surprised at how quickly people were willing to follow me. When I told you I made the call to go remote early on the morning of the 13th, I mean, I woke up rock solid knowing I needed to do that. And my core incident management team agreed with me. And when I went to the board that day, they just went right along with it. Maybe they were already thinking that, and maybe they just did it because they trusted me. But that's been very heartening to me, that I feel like I have really unflagging support from my firm and the key leaders. And that's been a really lovely surprise. Not surprise, but really lovely thing to learn quickly.
Thank you, Doug, for that question. Doug is a Like a Boss regular, so I look forward to seeing you at the appropriate time. Doug, I also think, Joan, you guys were so disciplined in having a business continuity or a disaster relief planning document, and I think many people created them on the fly, but I do feel like coming out of this is going to be something that people are going to go back to, they're going to update, and really be prepared. So unfortunately, I'm sure some people learn the hard way, but it seems like that was a great discipline that your firm had. Strawberry, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we've got one from Peter Fendler.
Oh.
Looks like you're muted, Peter.
There you go. Thanks. Sorry. Just curious, Joan, about when you stepped into the CEO role, if you were able to downsize your legal practice element of your job to make time for that, or if you're trying to do the same load on both sides.
That's a good question. No, we decided a number of years ago to have a full-time CEO. And as it turns out, I mentioned earlier, I've been the director of attorney recruiting for the last 11 years. And that title is a little bit of a misnomer. I was attorney recruiting and retention and a variety of other projects, and I was on the board. So I had really started to reduce my legal practice anyway. And then I was elected to become CEO last April. And so I had plenty of time to, I would say, gently transition the remaining clients I had. So I'm not doing any direct client work right now.
Thank you.
Good question.
Sure.
Strawberry, do we have another question? And then there was also one posted using the Q&A tool.
Yes. So Nancy Marshall will be our second to last question, and then I'll read the submitted question.
Great.
I'm unmuting myself. Hail, Colby. Hail, Joan.
Hey, hi, Nancy.
So both of you, Lisa and Joan, are the first women to be in such significant leadership roles in your respective organizations. And have you met any resistance as a woman? And have you felt like you had to act more like a man?
I think you're asking both of us.
You go first, Joan.
I'll go first. Well, I just kind of buck those stereotypes. I mean, if you look at my hair, I'm not someone who tries to conform to a certain look and all that. And I've been at the firm for a really long time. I have a very big personality, and I think people kind of knew what they were getting. So I don't feel I don't feel pressure to conform to a stereotype. And as I just said, I came into this, obviously my partners voted me in, so I knew I had support, and I felt that I had a fair amount of goodwill and trust coming in. But perhaps thanks to COVID-19, I feel like I've really got tremendous support at this point, and I don't feel like me being a woman has been a factor, I'm happy to say. I appreciate the question, because I know that is true for a lot of people, but it is fortunately not true for me.
From my perspective, no, I've never felt held back because of my gender or felt a need to be, quote, more like a man, Nancy. And one time and I don't even remember where I read this, but it said that, you know, for a woman to be successful in business, you should never cry, you should never bake for your employees, and you should never have a candy dish on your desk. Now, I can say I do not have a candy dish, but I've definitely baked before. I made French toast for the sales staff once when they hit their goal, my signature French toast. And I've been known to cry, like in front, you know, at town meetings and you know, all hands meetings. But I think it just shows that you know that you're human and that you care about people. So it just hasn't been an issue, but I thank you for the question. And Strawberry, your note to me is that, are we good on questions?
We can take one more if you guys want to take one more from the audience. We've got Stephanie Gill.
Oh.
Hello, and thank you. I've learned a lot today in this already, and I wonder, Joan, your experience in leading Bernstein Shur through the COVID-19 experience, is there anything you think we can generalize from this regarding, let's say, in terms of future guidance for companies and how they would go through this? Is there something we could say in terms of that every company should have an emergency plan in place, or are there templates for, you know, guidelines for working at home, or ways to, you know, let's say potentially package this and make it easy for the next time that people are going through this, new companies or future companies, if we get stuck with this again? Of course, those who've gone through it could know what to do, but.
Right. Hi, Stephanie. It's nice to hear your voice. I'll get to the kind of the template part of your question in a second, but I want to tell you what immediately came to mind when you started talking, and that is trust your people. What I am finding is that right now we are so in this together, and I feel like Lisa, I choked up yesterday in a practice group leader meeting because I was telling the practice group leaders that I have never been more proud of my firm or my colleagues ever. And we are in a crisis, and everybody is stepping up, and everybody's working hard, and everyone's trying to figure out how to problem solve. And it's really heartening. And part of it is I think people know that we're all in this together and that we trust them to try to figure it out and to try to help. And so I would say trust your people and empower them to help figure things out and advance the company. And that's a Kevin Hancock message, right? Disperse power and let people stand up and lead. I wholeheartedly support and believe that. So that might be a lasting message I would share. On a more mechanical level, I could rattle off a couple things. I was fortunate. I inherited a business continuity plan, but thank God we had one. I would say make sure your company has a business continuity plan. Make sure you have an incident management team. So if you have to call it, we have a text alert and an email, and we have multiple ways to trigger the incident management team. I would say if you're a leader and you don't already have this, find your key advisors that you can call in the middle of the night and you trust no matter what. And if one of them is not a communications person, I would get one. My two are David Farmer here in Maine and Jim Merrill in New Hampshire. And, David's not a lawyer, Jim is a lawyer. So it's not their legal expertise. It's knowing how to handle a crisis and knowing how to talk to people and knowing how to message. It's very important to be open, transparent, and honest, but I've learned a lot working with these two in terms of how to communicate in a crisis. So I would get a crisis communication person to help you. In terms of templates, I'm trying to think different ones. I'm more thinking about working with your IT people and making sure you've got a variety of backup plans there. I think I'm going to stop because I could go on and on, but yeah, I would start with a really solid business continuity plan and some key advisors, one of whom knows how to communicate in a crisis.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. We're really delighted that you could join us this afternoon. The series is shaping up to be great. Next week, we're going to have John Steicher from Stonewall Kitchen join me, and it should be interesting because John's business has a variety of different aspects, including a manufacturing facility, so talking about how to continue manufacturing during this time. And maybe he'll share some recipes on things that you can make with pasta and tuna fish, which is probably what many of us are down to. And then also Steve Smith from LL Bean is going to be with us. I'm sure you've read in the Press Herald the wonderful things that LL Bean is doing to kind of pivot and support the community, whether it's making masks out of dog beds or retooling their warehouse to support the Good Shepherd Food Bank has really been quite remarkable. And Leanne Leahy is also on board. She's joining us on April 17th. And VIA has an incredible culture. So we want to talk to Leanne about how to stay positive, how to keep your culture up. And she's also got some great work from home tips because that's been part of their culture all along. So we look forward to those guests. And also you'll be getting a survey from us. So we definitely want your feedback on how things went for you today. So again, thank you so much to our sponsors. I also just want to say how proud I am of the work that the Press Herald newsroom is doing to keep everyone informed on what's happening with this crisis, because it changes minute by minute. We have made all our coronavirus content free to access on our website, but of course, I always ask for your support so we can continue our mission, which is more important than ever. So thank you again. I hope everyone has an invite to a virtual happy hour this afternoon, and stay away from each other, stay home, stay informed. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been great.
Oh, thank you, Joan. Thank you so much.
It's been fun. Thanks. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.